You didn't stumble into bad health. You were sold into it. The word superfood has no legal definition, no regulatory body, and no scientific standard. It is a marketing term. Here's what it has been selling you. 1. The purple Brazilian berry that supposedly reverse ages your cells, floods your body with antioxidants, and justifies a $14 smoothie bowl topped with granola you could have bought for $2, has a serious marketing budget and a deeply unimpressive scientific resume. Acai became a Western health phenomenon largely through a 2004 appearance on a television health program, not through peer-reviewed research. A detail the wellness industry quietly buried under enough exotic photography to make you stop asking questions. The antioxidant ORAC score, which is the measurement used to market acai as a superior food, was officially abandoned by the United States Department of Agriculture in 2012 because it proved meaningless as a predictor of health benefit in the human body. The agency threw out the entire scoring system. The supplement companies kept using it. Blueberries, which cost a fraction of the price, consistently match or outperform acai on the biomarkers that researchers actually still care about. Most commercial acai products, the bowls, the frozen packets, the juices, are loaded with added sugar, which neutralizes any antioxidant benefit that might have theoretically existed. No randomized controlled trial has demonstrated that acai consumption produces measurable health improvements in humans beyond what a general fruit-inclusive diet already delivers. You paid import prices for a berry that the government's own measurement system quietly declared irrelevant. The smoothie bowl was delicious. The science left the building over a decade ago. 2. Somewhere right now, someone is standing at a juice bar counter slamming a 1-ounce shot of lawn-colored liquid with the grim focus of a person taking prescribed medication. Detoxifying, alkalizing, life-changing. Wheatgrass was popularized in the 1930s by a wellness pioneer named Anne Wigmore who had no medical credentials and claimed the juice could cure cancer and reverse aging. Claims that were never substantiated in any clinical research, which did not slow the market down even slightly. The compound responsible for wheatgrass's vivid green color and most of its marketing claims is chlorophyll. And here is the part the juice bar does not laminate onto a placard. Your body cannot meaningfully process chlorophyll. You lack the digestive enzymes required to break it down into usable compounds, so it moves through your system largely intact, accomplishing approximately nothing on the way out. Wheatgrass, at the early growth stage, also contains gluten proteins, which creates a real and largely unacknowledged risk for people with celiac disease who are frequently told to drink it as a health intervention. Multiple systematic reviews have found no credible clinical evidence that wheatgrass shots provide benefits beyond those of standard vegetable consumption, the kind you could achieve by eating broccoli, which does not require a special shot glass or a $5 bar tab. You are paying $5 to drink something your body politely refuses to engage with. The lawn outside your house contains the same active ingredient, and it is completely free. 3. The shriveled red berry from the Himalayas is always photographed against ancient mountains and photographed near glowing monks, promising longevity, immune fortification, and the kind of spiritual vitality that regular fruits simply cannot provide at its embarrassingly accessible price point. The legend most frequently cited in goji berry marketing involves a Chinese man named Li Qingyuan, who supposedly lived 256 years and attributed his longevity entirely to goji berries. Historians have found no credible evidence this person existed, which does make him a somewhat unreliable product spokesperson. Goji berries do contain vitamins A and C, along with zinc, which sounds promising until you notice that dozens of common and affordable fruits and vegetables already in your grocery store contain the exact same nutrients. The studies that show goji berry benefits have almost uniformly been small, short in duration, and funded by companies with a direct financial interest in positive results. A conflict of interest that does not disqualify research, but does require a raised eyebrow at minimum. The Himalayan label applied to most goji products is geographic theater because the vast majority of goji berries sold in Western markets are grown commercially in China's Ningxia province under entirely standard agricultural conditions. Gram for gram, dried cranberries or raisins offer comparable nutritional profiles at roughly 1/10 the price. You are buying the mountain backdrop, not the berry. Strip the packaging of its ancient typography and serene landscape photography, and you have expensive raisins that a marketing team gave a passport. 4. The jet black powder that turned lattes, ice cream, and juice cleanses into Instagram content convinced an entire generation that eating what looks like chimney soot is a sophisticated approach to internal purification. Activated charcoal is a legitimate medical intervention. It is used in emergency toxicology departments when someone has ingested an acute poison, and under those specific supervised conditions, it works by binding to the toxic compound in the gut before it can be absorbed. The problem is that the same binding mechanism that makes it useful in a poisoning scenario makes it genuinely dangerous in a daily wellness context, because it binds indiscriminately. It does not distinguish between unwanted compounds in your prescription medication, your birth control pill, or the vitamins you just took an hour ago. It reduces the effectiveness of all of them without announcing that it is doing so. The Food and Drug Administration has not approved activated charcoal for any detox, digestive, or wellness application outside of acute poisoning treatment. The toxins it is marketed to remove in the wellness context are never specified by name, because naming them would require identifying compounds that do not exist in a healthy person's system. New York City's health department moved to ban activated charcoal from food products in 2018 due to insufficient safety data for routine consumption. You paid a premium to eat something that, in its proper medical context, is deployed when someone accidentally drinks drain cleaner. Your morning routine and the poison control protocol should not share an ingredient list. 5. The fizzy fermented tea in the fancy bottle with the hand-drawn font and the floating culture strand promises to colonize your gut with billions of friendly bacteria and restore the intestinal paradise that modern processed living destroyed. Kombucha contains probiotics. That part is true. What the label does not tell you is that the bacterial strains present are not standardized between batches or between brands, the quantities are inconsistent, and most of those organisms are destroyed by stomach acid before they reach the large intestine where they would actually need to act. Commercial kombucha contains far lower probiotic concentrations than clinical grade supplements, and unlike pharmaceuticals, the bacterial strains, quantities, and viability are not regulated or independently verified. You are essentially purchasing a biological lottery ticket with no published odds. The fermentation process also produces small amounts of alcohol, and some commercial kombuchas have tested above the legal non-alcoholic threshold without being labeled accordingly. The gut microbiome research field that kombucha marketing leans on is genuinely exciting and genuinely early stage. Current science cannot yet specify which bacterial strains at which doses, delivered through which vehicles, reliably improve which human health outcomes. The studies are promising the way a first-round draft pick is promising. Potential is real, performance is not yet confirmed. You are drinking a slightly sour tea and trusting that its bacteria survive an acid bath long enough to fix a complex ecosystem problem. The bottle's aesthetic is doing considerably more work than the contents. 6. The unflavored powder dissolving into your coffee each morning is supposedly rebuilding your joints, plumping your skin from the inside, and reversing the structural decay of aging one measured scoop at a time. Here's the fundamental problem with this entire product category. Collagen you eat does not become collagen in your body because that is not how digestion works. When you consume collagen protein, your digestive system breaks it down into its component amino acids the same way it processes any other protein source. It has no mechanism to recognize that those amino acids originated from collagen and no instruction to route them specifically to your skin or your cartilage. Your body synthesizes its own collagen from amino acids and vitamin C, and it does this without needing the original collagen as a template or a delivery vehicle. Clinical trials on oral collagen supplementation show mixed results, with the most favorable studies being small, short in duration, and frequently funded by supplement manufacturers who have a financial stake in the outcome. Collagen powder is also commonly sourced from bovine hides or fish scales, byproducts of other industries that are processed, standardized, and repackaged at a significant premium. Adequate protein intake from any complete protein source, combined with sufficient vitamin C, gives your body the exact same amino acid building blocks it needs for collagen synthesis. Eating collagen to rebuild your collagen is like mailing someone a pile of disassembled furniture and expecting them to receive a finished wardrobe. The assembly still happens inside. The original box you shipped it in is nutritionally beside the point. 7. The dark green pond algae powder that turns your smoothie the color of a neglected aquarium is marketed as a complete protein, an immune amplifier, a brain enhancer, and a heavy metal detoxifier. Essentially a pharmacy that grows in water. Spirulina does contain protein and it does contain vitamins, but its most aggressively promoted nutrient is vitamin B12, which exists in a form called pseudocobalamin that the human body cannot absorb or utilize. This makes spirulina actively misleading as a B12 source for vegans who rely on it, which is a category of people who genuinely need to get this right. The heavy metal detoxification claims are based on in vitro studies, meaning cells in a dish, not human trials, and the mechanism by which spirulina might bind metals in a controlled laboratory setting does not translate to the human digestive tract in any verified way. Spirulina also has the unfortunate ability to accumulate heavy metals from its growth environment, meaning poorly sourced spirulina can introduce contaminants rather than remove them. The Food and Drug Administration classifies spirulina as generally recognized as safe, which is a basic regulatory baseline, not an efficacy endorsement, though the supplement industry has constructed an entire health mythology on top of that modest classification. NASA researched spirulina for space travel food supply due to its efficient cultivation yields. That is a logistical advantage that got repackaged as a nutritional endorsement, somewhere between the research lab and the wellness store shelf. You are paying premium prices to eat something that impressed engineers managing a resource problem, not physicians managing your health. 8. The cloudy, sharp-smelling liquid with the floating strand of proteins at the bottom is worshipped as a metabolic accelerant, a blood sugar stabilizer, a weight loss catalyst, and an all-purpose cure that the pharmaceutical industry has been quietly suppressing. Apple cider vinegar is vinegar. The most cited weight loss study on it involved 175 participants over 12 weeks and found an average loss of between 1 and 2 kilograms. A result so modest that it sits within the range of normal daily weight fluctuation and cannot be responsibly described as a clinical finding worth restructuring your morning around. The blood sugar effects are real but narrow and unoriginal. Acetic acid blunts the glycemic spike of a high carbohydrate meal when consumed alongside it, but this is a property of all vinegars, not a unique feature of the apple cider variety. Regular consumption of undiluted apple cider vinegar has documented negative consequences. It erodes dental enamel progressively, can damage the esophageal lining with repeated exposure, and has caused chemical burns when applied directly to skin. The mother floating in the bottle, which is described as the living probiotic-rich component justifying the price premium, contains no verified probiotic benefit and is largely cosmetic in terms of health impact. Paul Bragg, the figure most responsible for popularizing ACV health claims in the 20th century, had his age disputed at the time of his death, and his longevity was attributed entirely to vinegar without any scientific examination. The salad dressing was always fine. The medical claims need to stay on the shelf. 9. The New Zealand honey in the jar with the clinical typography and the unique Manuka factor rating system costs enough to make regular honey feel inadequate about its entire existence. Antibacterial, wound healing, gut restoring. The active compound in Manuka honey is methyl glyoxal, and it does have demonstrated antibacterial properties. This part is real and is used legitimately in clinical wound care settings under medical protocols. The problem is the delivery mechanism. When you eat Manuka honey, the antibacterial compounds encounter stomach acid and digestive enzymes before they reach any site of infection or inflammation in your body, and those compounds are substantially denatured in the process. The throat coating sensation is real. The systemic antibacterial intervention is not. The unique Manuka factor rating system is owned and administered by a New Zealand industry body. It is a quality and authenticity marker for producers, not an independent medical efficacy rating issued by a neutral scientific authority. Manuka honey is also still sugar, approximately 80% glucose and fructose, and consuming it regularly as a health food while ignoring its sugar content is a form of selective nutritional accounting. To make the situation more interesting, significant fraud exists in the Manuka market. New Zealand exports substantially more jars labeled as Manuka honey annually than the country's Manuka flower population could plausibly have produced. You are eating a $40 jar of sugar because the antibacterial version of this product works on wounds, not in stomachs. The clinical application is legitimate. The pantry mythology that borrowed its credentials is not. 10. The frothy, vivid green powder in the ceramic bowl, always photographed next to a linen napkin and a moment of apparent serenity, promises focused calm, metabolic lift, and the meditative clarity of a Japanese tea ceremony delivered straight to your commute. Matcha is good green tea with exceptional branding. The cognitive and metabolic effects it produces are real, modest, and shared almost entirely by a cup of standard loose-leaf green tea that costs a fraction of the price. Matcha does contain L-theanine, an amino acid that modulates the alertness produced by caffeine into something smoother and less jagged than coffee alone. But standard green tea contains the same compound in similar concentrations. The caffeine in matcha runs approximately 70 milligrams per serving, which is comparable to a regular cup of coffee. The calm energy effect you associate with matcha is the L-theanine managing the caffeine, not a unique matcha phenomenon requiring premium processing or geographical specificity. EGCG, the antioxidant compound most cited in green tea research, is present in matcha, but is also present in standard green tea, white tea, and a meaningful range of common vegetables. The ceremonial grade designation that drives the price premium is a Japanese agricultural classification based on leaf position and processing method. It reflects production quality, not health compound concentration. Most cafe matcha lattes also contain low-grade culinary matcha mixed with milk and sweetener, significantly reducing any theoretical benefit while adding considerable calories. You are paying artisan prices for an effect that a $4 box of green tea bags delivers in essentially identical form. The ceremony is lovely. The health gap between them does not exist. 11, the golden spice in the horsepill capsule, stacked next to black pepper extract for what the label calls enhanced bioavailability, is marketed as a natural anti-inflammatory that rivals prescription drugs. And the claim that the pharmaceutical industry has systematically suppressed this information is doing a lot of work to make you feel justified in buying it. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, has a bioavailability problem that the supplement industry has not solved. It is only partially acknowledged. Curcumin makes up 2 to 5% of turmeric by weight, and on its own it is so poorly absorbed by the gut that blood plasma levels after consumption are nearly undetectable by standard assay. The piperine in the black pepper extract co-supplement does increase absorption. Studies suggest up to 2,000%, which sounds transformative until you calculate that 2,000% of nearly zero is still a very small number. The majority of positive curcumin findings come from in vitro research or animal studies, and human clinical trials have consistently shown poor absorption alongside mixed outcomes. A 2017 paper in the Journal of Medicinal Chemistry described curcumin as a pan-assay interference compound, a molecule that produces false positives in laboratory screening tests, which may partially explain why it looks so promising in preliminary research and then underperforms when studied in actual humans. Eating turmeric as a spice in food provides culinary benefit and modest nutritional contribution. The supplement industry took a kitchen ingredient and applied pharmaceutical packaging, pharmaceutical pricing, and pharmaceutical confidence. to something that still cannot reliably get past your gut wall. 12. The jar of solid white fat that displaced every other cooking oil in health-conscious kitchens for a full decade promised to boost metabolism, sharpen cognition, eliminate bacteria, and make your hair shine. All simultaneously, all from the same jar, all for a price that felt appropriate given the extraordinary claims. Coconut oil is approximately 90% saturated fat. The American Heart Association specifically named it in a 2017 advisory and recommended against its use for cardiovascular health, a position that the wellness world received and then largely proceeded to ignore. The medium-chain triglyceride argument, which holds that coconut oil's fats are metabolized differently and more favorably, is partially valid for isolated MCT oil, but is largely inapplicable to whole coconut oil. Coconut oil is predominantly lauric acid, which is technically a medium-chain fatty acid, but behaves more like a conventional, long-chain saturated fat in human metabolism. The cognitive benefits attributed to coconut oil in mainstream wellness content are borrowed from MCT oil research conducted on Alzheimer's patients in specific and heavily caveated clinical contexts. Research that does not apply to healthy individuals cooking their eggs. Global coconut oil production and its superfood status surged following a coordinated wellness industry campaign in the early 2010s. The science did not change. The marketing did. The jar on your counter contains more saturated fat than the thing you were told to stop eating a generation ago. The branding changed. The fat content remained exactly where it was. 13. The dark bitter leaf appeared on tote bags, t-shirts, and restaurant menus and ceased to be a vegetable somewhere in the process, becoming instead a moral position. Eating kale meant you had figured out something the rest of the produce section had not managed to communicate. The kale boom was partly engineered. A public relations agent named Oberon Sinclair has claimed to have run a deliberate word-of-mouth campaign promoting kale to chefs and food writers beginning around 2012, which helped catalyze its cultural ascent from farm staple to identity marker. Kale contains oxalates, which are compounds that bind to calcium and minerals and reduce their absorption, meaning its heavily marketed calcium and iron content is partially offset by its own internal chemistry. Raw kale consumed in significant daily quantities contains goitrogens, which are compounds that can interfere with thyroid function by inhibiting iodine uptake. A relevant consideration for people with thyroid conditions who are using kale as a daily staple based on its health reputation. Spinach has comparable or superior levels of several key nutrients including iron, folate, and vitamin K. It costs less. It is easier to digest. It simply does not have anyone running a word-of-mouth campaign for it. The "and-I" score frequently used to justify kale's superfood status was created by Dr. Joel Foreman and is not a peer-reviewed nutritional ranking system recognized across the field. Kale is a vegetable that briefly had a publicist. Eat it if you enjoy it. Stop treating spinach as though it is nutritionally inferior for failing to acquire cultural representation. 14. The tiny seeds that expand into gel in your water glass were sold to you as an ancient Aztec superfood packed with omega-3 fatty acids, complete protein, and enough fiber to restructure your entire digestive experience. A seed doing the work of a supplement protocol. The omega-3 fatty acids in chia seeds are alpha-linolenic acid, which is the plant form, and your body must convert ALA to EPA and DHA to unlock the cardiovascular and cognitive benefits that omega-3 research is actually built on. Human conversion rates average between 5 and 15%, which makes chia a highly inefficient omega-3 delivery vehicle for the benefits you think you are purchasing. The complete protein claim is technically accurate. Chia does contain all essential amino acids, but in quantities so modest per serving that you would need to eat implausible amounts to meet meaningful protein needs through chia alone. Chia seeds absorb 10 to 12 times their weight in water, which produces the gel-forming effect that is the centerpiece of their marketing and is also a documented choking hazard. There are reported cases of dry chia seeds expanding in the esophagus and requiring medical intervention. The ancient warrior origin story is legitimate in that chia was historically cultivated in Mesoamerica, but it was then largely abandoned for centuries before being commercially rediscovered and rebranded in the 2000s. Flax seeds provide comparable or superior ALA content at significantly lower cost, with the added advantage that ground flaxseed is more bioavailable than whole chia. The seeds expand in liquid. That is genuinely their most impressive demonstrated ability. 15. The speckled seeds from the cannabis plant's non-psychoactive relative are scattered over salads by people who want credit for both nutritional sophistication and cultural proximity to something edgier than a salad. Hemp seeds do contain a favorable omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of approximately 3:1, which aligns with general dietary recommendations. But this same ratio is present in flax seeds, walnuts, and several other substantially more affordable foods that somehow fail to acquire the same cultural momentum. The complete protein designation is accurate. Hemp does contain all essential amino acids, but the total protein per 3 tablespoon serving is approximately 10 grams, which is comparable to a modest portion of most legumes and does not justify the price differential. Hemp seed marketing consistently leverages the plant's botanical relationship with cannabis despite the product containing no THC or CBD. The association is real. The implied pharmacological mystique is manufactured specifically to justify a premium that the nutritional profile alone would not support. Hemp seed oil is also routinely confused in consumer perception with CBD oil or hemp extract, which are entirely different products derived from different parts of the plant with completely different compound profiles and completely different price justifications. The markup on hemp seeds compared to sunflower or pumpkin seeds with comparable nutritional profiles can be 3 to 5 times higher. You are paying a cannabis adjacency tax on a seed that contains no cannabis compounds. The omega ratio is a real benefit. The mystique markup around it is a separate and entirely optional transaction. 16. The Peruvian root powder stirred into smoothies is approached with the confidence of someone administering a personal hormone replacement protocol. Energy, libido, hormonal balance, fertility. Essentially, a root vegetable performing the functions of an endocrinologist at a fraction of the consultation fee with none of the medical degree. MAGA does not contain hormones or identifiable hormone precursors. The theoretical mechanism by which it influences hormonal balance has never been established or verified in peer-reviewed research, meaning the core claim of the product rests on a mechanism that scientists have not been able to locate. The studies showing libido improvement from maca supplementation are almost uniformly small, involving fewer than 50 participants, lasting between 4 and 12 weeks, and have not been independently replicated at the scale required to draw reliable conclusions. Maca is a cruciferous vegetable in the same botanical family as broccoli, cabbage, and radishes, and its nutritional profile reflects that: carbohydrates, some minerals, and fiber. Without the extraordinary biological properties that supplement marketing implies are somehow present in the root form but absent from the vegetable family it belongs to. Peru has designated maca a protected crop partly due to concerns over the commercial exploitation of a culturally significant plant by foreign supplement companies. The ancient Peruvian superfood framing has created genuine economic and cultural extraction issues for Andean communities whose agricultural heritage is being monetized elsewhere. A 2016 systematic review in BMC Complementary Medicine concluded that the evidence for maca's health benefits was limited and that more rigorous trials were needed before any health claims were justified. You're adding a Peruvian radish to your smoothie and expecting it to regulate your endocrine system. The root is fine. The endocrinologist impression is not. 17. The miracle tree leaf powder from South Asia and Africa contains every vitamin, cures inflammation, regulates blood sugar, and is described in wellness marketing copy with the kind of enthusiasm previously reserved for religious texts and major pharmaceutical breakthroughs. Moringa's nutritional profile is legitimately impressive relative to its caloric density. It contains vitamins A and C, calcium and iron, but this is its value as a food security crop in regions with significant dietary limitations, not its value as a supplement for people with full refrigerators and access to varied produce. The bioactive compounds in moringa that show anti-inflammatory effects in laboratory studies have not demonstrated the same effects in well-designed human clinical trials, which is the gap between interesting preliminary finding and health claim that supplement marketing routinely ignores. Moringa leaves contain anti-nutrients, including tannins and oxalates, that reduce absorption of the minerals it is most marketed for, meaning the net nutritional delivery is lower than raw numbers suggest, a detail that does not appear in the marketing brochure. Powdered moringa exported to Western markets undergoes processing and extended international shipping that degrades heat-sensitive compounds like vitamin C. So the nutritional profile on the label may not accurately represent what arrives in your smoothie weeks or months later. The World Health Organization has researched moringa as a practical food security solution for nutrient-deficient populations in developing nations. A recommendation that the wellness industry translated into a $30 powder for consumers who already have adequate access to food. The miracle was in the original context, not in your blender. 18. The simmered for 24 hours collagen-rich liquid that healed gut linings, rebuilt joints, smoothed skin, and restored intestinal integrity, sold for $10. A cup at cafe counters where the chalkboard font made the medical claims feel handcrafted and earnest. Bone broth is a nutritious stock. The specific gut healing claims rest almost entirely on collagen and gelatin that your digestive system dismantles before those compounds can perform any structural repair on your intestinal wall. The same bioavailability problem that applies to collagen powder applies here, because broth is essentially collagen powder you made yourself at greater expense and time investment. The gelatin in bone broth does not survive digestion in a form capable of fulfilling the structural repair role that wellness media has assigned to it. A 2017 study found measurable lead concentrations in commercially prepared bone broth, which is an outcome of boiling animal bones. The very process that is supposed to be extracting health benefits is also extracting whatever heavy metals were stored in those bones during the animal's life. The protein content of bone broth is modest, typically 6 to 10 grams per cup, and the amino acid profile is incomplete, making it nutritionally inferior as a protein source compared to whole food alternatives that cost less. Intestinal permeability as a widespread consumer diagnosis also remains contested in mainstream gastroenterology. The condition exists in specific pathological contexts, but the wellness industry has expanded it into a broadly applicable diagnosis to create demand for a product category that would otherwise struggle to justify its price point. The soup is warm, the science is not. 19. The cloudy, unfiltered honey in the dark jar from the farmer's market is treated as categorically superior medicine compared to the processed honey in the standard bottle, full of living enzymes, bioavailable antioxidants, and probiotic properties that industrial heat has extinguished. Raw honey does have modest advantages over heavily processed honey. They are real, they are small, and the honey is still approximately 80% sugar regardless of which jar it came from. The enzymes in raw honey are primarily diastase and invertase, which are digestive enzymes for breaking down sugars. They do not perform therapeutic functions in the human body and are largely denatured by stomach acid before any hypothetical systemic effect could occur. Raw honey does contain slightly higher polyphenol and antioxidant levels than heavily processed honey, and this is a legitimate nutritional distinction, but the absolute quantities involved are small enough that the health contribution within a full diet is negligible. Both raw and processed honey are approximately 80% fructose and glucose, with 17% water. The glycemic impact is essentially identical, and the decision between jars does not change what your blood sugar does in the next 30 minutes. The probiotic claim for raw honey is based on the presence of wild yeast and bacteria from the fermentation process. These are not standardized, verified strains, not present in meaningful quantities, and unlikely to survive the journey to the large intestine in functional form. You are paying a premium for a marginally less processed version of sugar and framing it as medicine. Both jars are predominantly sugar. One just has more compelling packaging decisions. 20. The bitter, crunchy fragments of pure cacao bean cost $15 per bag and are positioned as the enlightened, uncompromised version of chocolate. All the antioxidants, none of the pleasure, and a flavor profile that tests your commitment to wellness every single bite. Cacao does contain flavonols, a class of antioxidant compounds with demonstrated cardiovascular effects in research. But the threshold for benefit has been associated with high percentage dark chocolate containing 70% cacao or more, not specifically with raw nibs consumed in their most challenging edible form. The raw designation on many cacao nib products is also questionable, because cocoa beans undergo fermentation during standard processing, and many products labeled as raw have been exposed to heat during shipping and storage that exceeds the temperatures required to preserve heat-sensitive compounds. Cacao nibs contain significant amounts of theobromine, a stimulant compound related to caffeine, and the alertness some consumers attribute to health benefits may be pharmacological rather than nutritional in origin. The antioxidant research on cacao flavonols is also heavily funded by confectionery companies. Mars has invested substantially in this area through its cocoa genomics program, and independent replication of the most favorable findings is thinner than supplement marketing implies. A 70% or higher dark chocolate bar delivers comparable flavanol content at a fraction of the cost and does not require pretending that you enjoy eating it. You are paying more to eat what chocolate tastes like before anyone in history bothered to make it enjoyable. A square of dark chocolate costs less and requires considerably less suffering to consume. 21. The small tuber with a predator's name that is not a nut and has nothing to do with tigers arrived in the wellness market marketed as an ancient prebiotic food with a fiber content capable of rebuilding your microbiome from structural foundations. Tiger nuts are Cyperus esculentus, sedge tubers, not nuts. And the name is a marketing decision rather than a botanical fact. Prebiotic on a food label means a substance that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, and dietary fiber from virtually any plant source qualifies for this description, including oats, bananas, and onions that cost a fraction of the price per serving. The ancient superfood narrative references their documented presence in ancient Egyptian diets, which confirms that they are edible and have been eaten by humans for a long time. It does not confirm that they are therapeutic or that their historical presence in one culture's diet constitutes evidence of superior health outcomes. Tiger nut milk is frequently marketed as a nut-free, dairy-free alternative with superior prebiotic properties. But like most commercial plant milks, the processed version is primarily water with a small fraction of the whole food's nutritional content remaining. The fiber content of tiger nuts is genuinely respectable at approximately 10 grams per ounce, but this figure is matched or exceeded by lentils, black beans, and flax seeds that you can buy in quantities large enough to fill a cabinet for the same price as a small bag of the tuber with the impressive name. A small tuber with a predator's name and a fiber content you could replicate with a handful of lentils sold at a significant markup. The naming department earned their salary. The nutrition team was describing vegetables. 22. The gelatinous briny preparation of Irish moss algae that flooded wellness social media promised 92 of the 102 minerals the human body needs. A number that circulates through wellness communities with the certainty of a laboratory-verified medical fact. The 92 minerals figures has no identifiable published source. It traces to no study, no methodology, and no peer-reviewed research. It appears to have originated in wellness content and spread through repetition without any verification step interrupting its momentum. The human body uses approximately 20 to 25 minerals in physiological processes. The concept of needing 102 minerals is not grounded in established nutritional science, which makes the claim structurally impossible to evaluate because it is built on a foundational premise that the field does not recognize. Sea moss does contain iodine, and in concentrated supplement form, it can easily exceed safe iodine intake levels. Excessive iodine consumption can cause or worsen thyroid dysfunction, which is the precise opposite of the thyroid health benefit that sea moss is commonly marketed to provide. Sea moss also accumulates heavy metals from the ocean water in which it grows, including arsenic, cadmium, and lead. Supplement-level consumption can bring these contaminants to potentially concerning levels in ways the culinary use of seaweed as a food ingredient does not. The Irish moss tradition involves using seaweed as a thickening agent in foods and drinks, a practical culinary application that was rebranded as a health intervention without any change in the underlying science. The gel is doing atmospheric work with no peer-reviewed footnotes. 23. The thick, faintly medicinal juice that wellness communities drink by the glass to heal the gut lining, reduce systemic inflammation, and cleanse the liver borrows its credibility almost entirely from the plant's legitimate and well-established success as a topical remedy for minor burns. Aloe vera's topical application works. Drinking the inner gel is a different product with a different evidence base and a different regulatory history. Aloe latex, the yellow layer just beneath the outer skin, contains anthraquinone compounds classified as stimulant laxatives, and the Food and Drug Administration banned aloe laxative products in 2002 due to insufficient safety data and animal studies that showed carcinogenic potential at high doses. Commercial aloe juice is supposed to be purified to remove latex content, but quality control varies significantly across products, and independent testing has found inconsistent compound levels in what is sold as purified juice. A 2016 study by the National Toxicology Program found that non-decolorized whole-leaf aloe vera extract caused cancerous lesions in rats at high doses, a finding that increased regulatory scrutiny of aloe supplements without eliminating them from shelves. The modest human evidence that exists for digestive benefits from aloe juice involves small studies with IBS patients showing marginal improvements that have not been replicated at scale. Something works brilliantly applied to the outside of your body, and someone decided the logical next step was to start drinking it. The logic holds as long as you do not examine it at any depth. 24. The adaptogen root from Ayurvedic tradition supposedly reduces cortisol, eliminates anxiety, raises testosterone, improves sleep quality, enhances athletic performance, and functions as a pharmaceutical-grade stress management system in a capsule you can order on subscription. Ashwagandha has more human evidence behind it than most things in the adaptogen category, which is faint praise given how thin that category's evidence generally runs. The most cited studies on stress and cortisol reduction involve 60-day trials with 60 to 80 participants. These are preliminary findings from small and short investigations, not the foundation for the near-pharmaceutical claims that appear in mainstream supplement marketing. Adaptogen is not a recognized pharmacological classification. It is a term from Soviet-era phytotherapy research that entered Western wellness vocabulary without going through the evidentiary process required of medical terminology, which means you are buying into a category that medicine does not formally recognize. Ashwagandha supplements have been linked to documented cases of liver injury, including a case reported in the World Journal of Gastroenterology involving a previously healthy individual who developed cholestatic hepatitis after supplementation, an outcome that is underreported relative to the product's enormous cultural visibility. The withanolide content across ashwagandha products varies enormously between brands due to the complete absence of standardization requirements, meaning you may believe you are purchasing a consistent product and be receiving wildly inconsistent doses from bottle to bottle. The adaptogen is adapting quite well to being sold as everything to everyone. The liver injury case reports are adapting less gracefully. 25. The shaggy white mushroom experiencing its cultural moment as a cognitive enhancer, nerve regenerator, and neuroplasticity booster is now available in your coffee, your capsule, your gummy, and your chocolate bar, offered to everyone who has heard that it makes your brain work better and wants some of that. Lion's mane contains hericenones and arenosines, compounds that stimulate nerve growth factor production in laboratory conditions. This is a real and genuinely interesting finding. The problem is that nerve growth factor does not cross the blood-brain barrier, which means the mechanism by which orally consumed lion's mane could produce cognitive enhancement in humans has not been established. The most cited human clinical trial involved 30 Japanese adults with mild cognitive impairment who showed improvement after 16 weeks. The study was not optimally blinded and has not been replicated at scale, which makes it preliminary rather than foundational. The vast majority of lion's mane research has been conducted on isolated cells or on rodents, and animal nerve growth factor research has a history of producing promising results that fail to translate to humans in clinical trials. Functional mushroom products also frequently contain inadequate concentrations of the target compounds, and many use mycelium grown on grain substrate rather than fruiting bodies. A production shortcut that dramatically reduces bioactive compound concentration without necessarily changing what the label says. The mushroom makes neurons grow faster in a dish. Your brain is significantly more complicated than a dish. The distance between those two facts is currently filled with premium coffee branding and a great deal of optimism. 26. The mushroom of immortality from traditional Chinese medicine has been dried, powdered, and sold to contemporary consumers as an immune modulator, stress reducer, sleep enhancer, and cancer adjunct therapy with thousands of years of use, cited as though historical duration is equivalent to clinical evidence. Reishi contains beta-glucans and triterpenes that interact with immune pathways in laboratory settings. This is the starting point for a great deal of marketing that significantly exceeds what the evidence supports. Immune modulation as a consumer benefit is so vaguely defined as to be meaningless without specifying which immune parameters are being changed, in which direction, to what degree, and with what verified health outcome for the person consuming it. Multiple case reports have linked reishi supplementation to liver injury, including a documented 2015 case in Annals of Hepatology involving severe hepatotoxicity in a woman who had been consuming powdered reishi for 2 months, a risk that is substantially underreported relative to the product's wellness world prominence. The cancer treatment claims circulating in wellness content are based on studies where reishi was used as an adjunct alongside conventional chemotherapy in specific clinical protocols. It is not an alternative cancer treatment, and presenting it ambiguously as cancer relevant is a meaningful misrepresentation of the research. Product quality in the reishi category is also extremely poor, with many capsules containing nominal amounts of mushroom, alongside fillers that constitute the majority of the contents. Thousands of years of use got reishi into the wellness aisle. That did not get it through a phase 3 clinical trial. Those are different processes governed by different standards. 27. The bright green algae tablet is pressed into pills and marketed as a complete detoxification system, a heavy metal chelator, an immune amplifier, and a whole food multivitamin. Essentially everything your body needs, from something that also grows in ornamental fish tanks and laboratory culture dishes. Chlorella's cell wall is composed of a tough material that limits the bioavailability of its nutrients significantly, and commercial processing attempts to crack or break the cell wall to improve absorption, but this step is inconsistently executed across brands and products. The heavy metal detoxification claim, which is the most aggressively marketed feature of chlorella supplements, is based primarily on animal studies and in vitro research, with human clinical evidence for chlorella as a meaningful chelation tool remaining limited and inconsistent. A genuine heavy metal toxicity situation requires pharmaceutical-grade chelation therapy administered under medical supervision. Using chlorella as a precautionary detox supplement in the absence of a diagnosed exposure and confirmed blood levels is treating a condition that has not been tested for using a mechanism that has not been verified in humans. New users of chlorella frequently experience digestive distress and photosensitivity reactions that supplement companies frame as detox symptoms, evidence that the cleanse is working, when the more straightforward explanation is gastrointestinal irritation from a novel food substance. Like spirulina, chlorella accumulates environmental contaminants from its cultivation water, meaning product sourcing and quality oversight are critical variables that consumer-facing marketing never addresses. You are eating compressed algae to remove metals your doctor has not confirmed you have. The tablets are very green. The evidence is considerably less vivid. 28. The dark purple syrup that wellness households start consuming at the first sign of autumn is the natural immune booster that shortens colds, prevents flu, and represents the responsible nature-aligned alternative to the pharmaceutical framework, except the science supporting it is significantly narrower than its seasonal devotion implies. The most cited elderberry study, conducted by Tiralongo and colleagues in 2016, found that travelers who took elderberry supplements experienced colds that were approximately 2 days shorter. This is a real finding, and it does not support the near prophylactic daily use pattern that has emerged around elderberry products in wellness culture. Elderberry's proposed mechanism involves anthocyanins binding to viral surface proteins in laboratory conditions, but viruses mutate continuously and human immune responses are substantially more complex than the controlled conditions of a test tube. Raw elderberries and elderberry flowers contain sambunigrin, a compound that the body converts to cyanide. Raw elderberries are toxic, and products must be properly processed to be safe. This risk is rarely communicated clearly to consumers who make home preparations based on wellness content. The cytokine stimulation sometimes described in elderberry marketing as supercharging the immune system raises theoretical concerns for people with autoimmune conditions or those taking immunosuppressant medications, a consideration that marketing materials do not typically include in their enthusiasm. Commercial elderberry products also vary enormously in actual elderberry concentration between brands and price points. The berry might reduce your cold by 2 days. The immune fortress mythology surrounding it is doing most of the heavy lifting. 29. The rose-tinted salt crystals ground from ancient seabeds in Pakistan cost significantly more than table salt, feel more intentional in the hand, and are sold as a mineral-rich, electromagnetically balancing alternative to the ordinary sodium chloride used by people who have not yet discovered their better options. Pink Himalayan salt is 98% sodium chloride. The trace minerals that produce its color and justify its price premium are present in concentrations below 0.001% for most of them. You would need to consume several kilograms of the salt to approach meaningful intake of any mineral beyond the sodium and chloride that table salt also delivers at a fraction of the price. The iodine point is the one the marketing never addresses. Table salt is fortified with iodine specifically because iodine deficiency was a widespread public health crisis before fortification programs were implemented, causing goiter and thyroid dysfunction at population scale. Himalayan salt contains negligible iodine. The people who switch to it exclusively for health reasons may be quietly walking away from the one public health intervention their salt was providing. The claims about Himalayan salt lamps purifying air, generating beneficial negative ions, and improving sleep quality have been examined and found to be non-functional at the ion concentrations a standard lamp can produce in a room. You switch to more expensive, less iodine-fortified sodium chloride because it is pink and was mined from geology. The thyroid your table salt was quietly protecting has noticed the change. 30. The refrigerated oil in the dark bottle, taken by the tablespoon as a concentrated plant-based omega-3 supplement, is positioned as the vegetarian equivalent of fish oil, equally effective cruelty-free, and superior in digestive compatibility. The ALA to EPO and DHA conversion problem undermines this positioning at its foundation. ALA converts to EPA at an average efficiency of 5 to 10% in healthy adults, and conversion to DHA is even lower, approximately 0 to 4%, making flaxseed oil a significantly less bioavailable omega-3 source than fish or algae oil for the specific compounds that clinical research on omega-3 benefits was actually built on. The cardiovascular and cognitive evidence for omega-3 supplementation is grounded in EPA and DHA research. Extrapolating those findings to ALA sources requires assuming a conversion efficiency that most human bodies do not achieve, which is an assumption that flaxseed oil marketing does not explicitly make but structurally relies upon. Flaxseed oil oxidizes rapidly. The refrigerated dark bottle is not premium packaging, it is a functional necessity because exposure to light and heat causes rancidity that can introduce harmful oxidation byproducts into the product you purchased as a health intervention. Whole ground flax seeds are also nutritionally superior to flaxseed oil because they retain fiber, lignans with antioxidant properties, and protein that the extraction process removes. Algae-based omega-3 oil, which provides direct EPA and DHA without the conversion step, is vegan, available, and is the source from which fish accumulate their omega-3 content in the first place. You are buying the inefficient middleman when the direct source exists. The flaxseed detour is optional. 31. The 16-ounce glass of plain celery juice prescribed as the first daily consumption, before food, before coffee, before anything else, to cleanse the liver, destroy what wellness media calls mystery illness, and restore the cellular integrity that modern life has corrupted, has a specific and unusual origin that the people selling it prefer not to foreground. The celery juice movement was largely initiated by Anthony William, who calls himself the medical medium and states that he receives health information from a spirit guide. He holds no medical, nutritional, or scientific credentials of any kind. The specific claims attached to celery juice, that it kills Epstein-Barr virus, heals thyroid conditions, restores liver function, and eliminates a cluster of conditions he describes as mystery illness, have no published clinical evidence behind them in any peer-reviewed literature. Celery contains naturally occurring phthalate compounds, and drinking large quantities daily introduces compounds that some researchers have flagged as potential endocrine disruptors. An irony given the endocrine benefits that celery juice is marketed to provide. Removing celery's fiber through juicing converts it from a whole food with a moderate glycemic profile into a faster absorbing liquid that spikes blood sugar more rapidly than eating the vegetable whole. The instruction to consume it exclusively on an empty stomach appears in no nutritional literature and seems to exist primarily to make the practice feel more medicinal and ritualistic than its ingredients justify. A spirit informed someone to drink it before breakfast. This became a global wellness protocol. The celery had no involvement in developing the protocol. 32. The kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, and miso filling the health-conscious refrigerator are positioned not as condiments or cooking ingredients, but as precision gut medicine. A curated daily microbiome intervention that the uninitiated are simply not yet performing. Fermented foods are healthy dietary components. They contribute real but modest microbiome benefits. The leap from healthy food to therapeutic cure is where the evidence stops keeping pace with the marketing. A 2021 Stanford study published in Cell did find that a high fermented food diet increased microbiome diversity over 10 weeks. This is a genuine and meaningful finding about dietary patterns, and it says nothing about specific fermented products functioning as individual therapeutic agents at the doses people actually consume them. Probiotic bacteria in fermented foods must survive stomach acid, bile salts, and the small intestine before reaching the colon where they would need to act. Survival rates vary enormously by bacterial strain, food matrix, and individual gut environment in ways that cannot be predicted from a product label. The probiotic strains in commercial kimchi, sauerkraut, and kefir are not standardized across brands or even across production batches. meaning you cannot know which bacteria are active, in what quantities, or whether they are the strains that any clinical research was actually conducted on. The meaningful research on specific probiotic strains for specific conditions uses pharmaceutical-grade preparations with verified colony counts. And those outcomes cannot be attributed to your jar of kimchi by association. The fermented food is good for you. Calling it a medical protocol is a tribute to your enthusiasm for the science and a mild misrepresentation of what the science actually says. 33. The expensive bottle of cold-pressed avocado oil with the artisan label is positioned as the superior cooking fat. Higher smoke point, heart-healthy monounsaturates, and the clean-eating credibility of a fruit that has been culturally ascendant for over a decade. Avocado oil is a good cooking fat. The premium cold-pressed version you are likely paying significantly more for is based on published research, often not what the label says. A 2020 study from the University of California, Davis tested 22 commercial avocado oil products and found that 82% were either rancid before the expiration date or adulterated with other oils, primarily soybean oil. The price premium you paid did not guarantee the product you believed you were purchasing. The high smoke point of avocado oil at approximately 500 degrees Fahrenheit is a genuine advantage for specific high heat applications, but at the temperatures most home cooking actually uses, the difference between avocado oil and quality olive oil is negligible in practice. The cardiovascular marketing for avocado oil borrows credibility from decades of Mediterranean diet research that was built on olive oil consumption as part of a broader dietary pattern, not on isolated oil supplementation. The cold-pressed and extra virgin designations for avocado oil are not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration and are self-reported by manufacturers without independent verification. You paid double for a premium product that an independent university study found was probably not the product it claimed to be on the label. The label was confident, the contents were flexible. 34. The concentrated capsule of EGCG and catechins promises to deliver all of green tea's benefits without the effort of brewing anything. The metabolism lift, the fat oxidation, the antioxidant loading, condensed into a convenient daily supplement that the wellness industry positioned between vitamin C and the multivitamins. The Food and Drug Administration and the European Food Safety Authority have both issued warnings about green tea extract supplements following multiple documented cases of acute liver damage, including cases serious enough to require transplant evaluation. Drinking green tea does not carry this risk. The reason is dose and delivery. Brewed tea delivers catechin concentrations that are far lower and absorbed more gradually alongside food, while the supplement concentrates and delivers these same compounds in quantities the body does not encounter through normal tea consumption. The fat-burning claims for green tea extract center on a modest thermogenic effect from the combination of caffeine and EGCG. Meta-analyses find an average effect of approximately 1 2/10 kilograms over 12 weeks. A result so modest it falls within the range of normal body weight fluctuation rather than clinical significance. Many green tea extract supplements contain catechin concentrations at pharmaceutical level doses without the safety profile data that pharmaceutical doses require before they reach consumers. The supplement industry took a beverage with a 3,000-year safe consumption history and concentrated it into a pill format that regulatory agencies now actively monitor for hepatotoxicity. Green tea, safe for millennia. Green tea in a concentrated capsule on the adverse event watch list. The plant was not the problem, the processing decision was. 35. The beautifully packaged tea blend with the aspirational name 14-Day Cleanse, Flat Tummy Reset Internal Renewal is photographed alongside lean abdominals and implies that what is inside the sachet is performing the metabolic work the imagery promises. Detox teas are primarily laxatives. The flat stomach effect that drives the testimonials is largely water loss and intestinal clearing from stimulant laxatives, not fat loss, not detoxification, and not any meaningful change in body composition. Most detox and flat tummy teas contain senna, a stimulant laxative that is the active mechanism behind every before and after photograph the product has ever produced. The Food and Drug Administration has issued multiple warning letters to detox tea companies for making unsubstantiated drug claims. Reducing body fat, cleansing the liver, and detoxifying are drug claims that require clinical evidence these companies do not have. Long-term senna use causes physiological dependence because the colon adapts to the stimulant and becomes progressively less capable of normal motility without it. The supplement that was supposed to reset your system makes your system dependent on the supplement. The toxins framework that detox marketing relies on is criticized specifically by toxicologists because it never names an actual compound. A genuine toxicity scenario identifies the toxin by name, its source, its blood concentration, and the mechanism of elimination. Celebrity and influencer promotion of detox teas has been extensively documented through leaked brand partnership agreements, and the flat stomach in the promotional image may reflect photography, filters, or the acute laxative effect on the day of the shoot rather than sustained product efficacy. The tea cleaned out your intestine. The toxins remained unnamed because naming them would have required inventing them first. 36. The $30 bag of coffee blended with ashwagandha, reishi, lion's mane, and rhodiola is the multi-adaptogen delivery system that promises jitter-free focus, adrenal support, stress resilience, and cognitive enhancement before your first meeting. A beverage performing the work of a medical specialty. The coffee is doing the work. The adaptogens in blended products are typically included at 100 to 300 milligrams per serving, and most adaptogen research, already limited in quality, uses doses of 300 to 600 milligrams of a single standardized extract. The multi-adaptogen blend is a scattershot of sub-therapeutic quantities of ingredients that were inadequately studied even at higher doses and in isolation. Adrenal support and adrenal fatigue are wellness industry terms, not recognized by endocrinologists. Actual adrenal insufficiency is a clinical diagnosis requiring medical management, and the adrenal glands do not fatigue in the metaphorical way wellness marketing describes, which means the problem the product claims to address is a problem the product invented. Rhodiola rosea, one of the most commonly included adaptogens, does have some evidence for stress reduction in studies using standardized extracts at specified doses under controlled conditions, none of which describes its inclusion as a trace ingredient in flavored coffee. The cognitive enhancement you experience is almost entirely attributable to the caffeine, which is one of the best studied and most consistently effective cognitive enhancers in existence and does not require supplemental mushroom powder to perform. You paid extra for the powder in the coffee, the caffeine was already there, it did not need assistance. 37. The dense refrigerator case bread made from sprouted grains positioned itself so far above regular whole wheat that some versions avoid using the word bread on the label at all, suggesting an almost alchemical transformation of grain into something that transcends the category and the price point. Sprouting does modestly reduce phytic acid in grains. Phytic acid is an anti-nutrient that binds to minerals and reduces their absorption, which produces a real but marginal improvement in the bioavailability of zinc, iron, and magnesium. This is a legitimate nutritional distinction. The magnitude is modest. The glycemic index of sprouted grain bread is slightly lower than standard whole wheat, but both are substantially lower than white bread, meaning the practical difference for most people's blood sugar is minimal in the context of a full mixed meal. The living food marketing language implies ongoing enzymatic activity in the finished product. But baking temperatures destroy enzymes, which means the living quality that the raw ingredient possessed is eliminated before the bread reaches your table, making the designation atmospherically meaningful and biologically moot. Sprouted grain products typically cost 2 to 3 times more than equivalent whole grain alternatives, for a nutritional improvement that researchers describe as modest and that would be difficult to detect as a meaningful health outcome in real dietary patterns over time. People with wheat allergies or celiac disease cannot safely consume sprouted wheat products. The proteins that cause immune reactions are not eliminated by the sprouting process, a fact sometimes obscured by more digestible marketing language that implies a broader transformation than actually occurred. The bread is marginally better. The price difference implies a different biological category. 38. The sour South American berry powder contains more vitamin C per gram than almost any other food on Earth. This is the headline, and it is the entire argument, and it collapses the moment you apply basic nutritional math to the actual requirements of the human body. The recommended daily intake of vitamin C is 65 to 90 milligrams for most adults, with an upper tolerable limit of 2,000 milligrams before adverse effects become a concern. Vitamin C is also water-soluble, meaning excess is excreted through urine. Megadosing from any source does not produce proportionally greater benefit because absorption efficiency decreases substantially at higher intake levels. Vitamin C from camu powder, from a standard orange, from a red bell pepper, or from a generic supplement produces the same physiological outcome because ascorbic acid is ascorbic acid regardless of its geographic origin or the premium applied to its processing and packaging. A single medium orange provides approximately 70 milligrams of vitamin C, sufficient for most adults' daily needs, at a cost that makes imported camu powder appear as a very expensive way to accomplish the same biochemical result. The highest natural source of vitamin C designation is technically accurate as a comparative statement and is a nutritional non sequitur because adequacy is what human physiology requires, not maximum concentration. Camu powder's high acidity also causes progressive erosion of tooth enamel and esophageal irritation with regular concentrated consumption, a consequence not typically featured alongside the superlative. Your body needed 65 milligrams. The surplus took the scenic route through your kidneys and departed. The orange produced the same outcome. 39. The oil from black cumin seeds is promoted with an ancient Islamic hadith citation stating it is a cure for everything except death. A sentence that has been doing enormous marketing work in wellness communities for years, and that supplement companies reproduce with the confidence of people who find religious texts more compelling than clinical trials. Thiamoquinone, the primary active compound in black seed oil, has demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects in cell and animal studies. This is the real scientific foundation, and it is preliminary. Human clinical trials are limited in number, modest in size, and insufficient in quality to support the broad therapeutic claims that accompany most black seed oil products. The most replicated human finding is a modest reduction in blood pressure and fasting blood glucose in individuals with metabolic syndrome, a meaningful and narrow finding that does not extrapolate to a universal health remedy for anyone who reads the hadith and purchases accordingly. Black seed oil interacts with several commonly prescribed medications, including blood thinners and diabetes medications, making it a supplement with genuine drug interaction potential that marketing materials consistently underemphasize relative to the miracle framing. The religious origin of the cure for everything reference is specific to a theological and historical context. Its use in commercial supplement marketing has been explicitly criticized by Muslim scholars and consumers as exploitation of religious text for commercial gain. Product quality across black seed oil products also varies enormously, with no standardized thiamoquinone content requirement on labels. A 1,400-year-old religious text became a product testimonial. The marketing team did not include the part about death, which would have complicated the packaging considerably. 40. The tangy, drinkable, fermented dairy product is positioned as a vastly superior probiotic delivery system compared to regular yogurt. More strains, higher live culture counts, and deeper gut colonization capability that makes standard probiotic supplements look unsophisticated by comparison. Kefir does contain more probiotic strains than most yogurts. The colonization narrative attached to this fact significantly overstates what those bacteria actually accomplish in your gut during and after transit. The probiotic bacteria in kefir are largely transient residents. They do not permanently colonize the gut microbiome. They pass through, and their measurable effects diminish after you stop consuming them consistently. The strains in commercial kefir are not standardized between brands or between production batches, and the live culture counts are not independently verified at the point of consumption, meaning the probiotic content you believe you are purchasing cannot be reliably predicted from the label by the time the product reaches you. Kefir's lactose content is genuinely reduced compared to regular milk due to fermentation, and this does make it more tolerable for some lactose-sensitive individuals. This is a legitimate functional benefit that exists independently of the probiotic framework. The meaningful clinical research on specific probiotic strains for specific health conditions uses pharmaceutical-grade preparations with verified colony-forming unit counts and identified strains. And outcomes from this research cannot be straightforwardly attributed to kefir because the product variables are too inconsistent to constitute the same intervention. Full-fat commercial kefir products frequently contain significant added sugar, meaning the probiotic product is simultaneously feeding the gut bacteria you want and the ones you do not. The bacteria are visiting, they are not moving in. 41. The thick, aggressively pungent juice sold at significant premium through multi-level marketing structures in the early 2000s promised to treat cancer, elevate immunity, relieve chronic pain, and extend lifespan. And it remains available today in essentially the same packaging with slightly adjusted legal language. Between 2000 and 2010, the Federal Trade Commission and the Food and Drug Administration took action against numerous non-I-juice companies for making unsubstantiated health claims. The companies paid settlements and continued operating. The MLM distribution model meant that the financial incentive to overstate benefits was distributed across thousands of independent sellers rather than concentrated in a single company, a structure that made regulatory enforcement difficult and kept the claims circulating long after the formal actions. Noni fruit contains anthraquinones, the same class of compounds present in aloe latex that concern regulators as potential laxatives, and at high doses in animal studies, carcinogens. Documented case reports of non-I-juice consumption causing liver injury exist in the medical literature. The fruit's actual nutritional profile is unremarkable. Some vitamin C and antioxidant compounds that appear in many other fruits at far lower prices and without the regulatory history. The taste of raw noni is described by most people who have encountered it as extremely unpleasant, and the supplement industry's ability to sell it at premium prices in spite of this is a genuine tribute to the persuasive power of therapeutic framing over direct sensory experience. You paid premium prices for something that tastes terrible, was litigated by federal agencies, and passed through a multi-level marketing structure before reaching you. Someone in that supply chain was exceptionally effective at their job. 42. The premium green powder blend combines young grass juices into a daily protocol. Barley grass, wheatgrass, spirulina, chlorella. Marketed as the compressed botanical essence of a living field, delivering enzymes, chlorophyll, and a nutritional profile that ordinary vegetables somehow fail to match at their ordinary prices. The enzymes in green powder blends are denatured by stomach acid, which operates at a pH between 1.5 and 3.5. They do not survive intact to perform any digestive or therapeutic function in your body, regardless of how they are described on the label. The claim that chlorophyll from green powders converts to hemoglobin or integrates functionally into human blood has no biochemical basis and circulates persistently in wellness content without any correction catching up to it at equivalent speed. Barley grass and wheatgrass at the early growth stage contain gluten proteins, creating a genuine and under-acknowledged risk for individuals with celiac disease who are frequently told to use these products as health supplements specifically because of their green, natural appearance. The processing of green powders through high-temperature drying or spray drying degrades heat-sensitive vitamins, including vitamin C and B vitamins, and the nutrient values on the label often reflect the raw ingredient prior to processing rather than the degraded powder you're actually consuming from the bag. A serving of broccoli, spinach, or any dark leafy green delivers the same nutrient categories with intact fiber, greater bioavailability, no processing-related losses, and no premium markup. The powder is what happens when someone processes a field and charges you for the romance of what it was before they did that. The broccoli was right there the whole time. 43. The liquid suspension of silver particles is sold as a broad-spectrum antimicrobial, an immune booster, a natural antibiotic alternative, and a systemic purification tool. And the explanation for why your doctor has never recommended it is that pharmaceutical companies suppress the knowledge to protect their revenue streams. The Food and Drug Administration published a ruling in 1999 stating that colloidal silver is not generally recognized as safe or effective for treating any disease or condition. This ruling has not been revised, and no subsequent evidence has altered the regulatory position on it. Argyria, the condition caused by silver accumulation in tissue over time, produces permanent blue-gray discoloration of the skin. It is irreversible. Cases have been widely documented and have received mainstream media coverage, including individuals whose entire body surfaces were discolored after years of regular colloidal silver use. Silver does have genuine antimicrobial properties. It is used in medical-grade wound dressings and certain device coatings, but its legitimate topical clinical application does not translate to safe or effective systemic consumption. Colloidal silver also interacts with specific antibiotic classes, including tetracyclines and quinolones, and with thyroid medications, reducing their effectiveness in ways that users are typically not informed of when purchasing the supplement. The suppressed by pharmaceutical companies narrative is a standard conspiracy marketing framework that functions to explain the absence of medical endorsement as evidence of endorsement's corruption rather than evidence of the product's failure to demonstrate efficacy. The FDA said no in 1999. People turned permanently blue. The supplement is still being sold. At some point, the market stopped requiring products to work. 44. The bar in the wellness section, carefully separated from the candy section by its ingredient panel, listing hemp seeds, chia, maca, cacao nibs, goji berries, and cold-pressed coconut oil, represents the final and most elegant form that superfood marketing takes. The complete portfolio assembled into one convenient rectangle you eat at your desk and call lunch. Ingredients listed near the end of a food label are present in the smallest quantities by weight. The superfoods from this entire list that appear late in a long ingredient panel are there in amounts too small to deliver any of their studied effects, even in the highly optimistic scenario where those effects were well established in humans at therapeutic doses, which they are not. The sugar content of many superfood bars ranges from 20 to 30 grams per bar, comparable to standard confectionery, with these sugar sources described using premium vocabulary, including organic coconut nectar and medjool dates that do not alter the glycemic impact of what you are eating. The protein in most superfood bars comes from standard sources, including pea protein, soy isolate, or whey. Ingredients with no superfood designation and no premium mystique, which means the superfood ingredient list is primarily decorative rather than structural. A 2019 analysis of popular protein bars found measurable levels of heavy metals, including lead and cadmium, in a majority of tested products, likely from cocoa and plant-based protein components, without the quality controls that would be required if these were pharmaceutical products. You spend $5 on a candy bar with a more sophisticated vocabulary. The goji berries are present, they are spectating. The date paste is doing the structural work, and it has not hired anyone to represent it. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now